Hey everybody, welcome to High Sky Monthly. We'll just give everybody a few minutes to join. While we're waiting, go ahead and shout out your city in the chat. Drea is coming in from Dallas. I'm also in Dallas. Joseph is in Santa Fe Springs, California. Michael's in Austin. Hey, fellow Texan. Marshall's in Dallas, Fort Worth. Johannes is in Berlin, Germany. Sharon Rossmark's in Chicago. Matt is in Hartford, Connecticut. Jonathan Cormier, I hope I said your name right, is in Plano, Texas. We have a lot of Texans in here. That's exciting. Huntington Beach, California. Michael Kramer. Good morning. We got you first thing in the morning. It's 10:30 a.m. where I'm at, so not too bad. It's so good to see so many familiar folks and also new names that we haven't seen. So for those of you that are new to this group, somebody messaged me a minute ago and said that they hope it's okay that they joined because they're not a member. It is perfectly okay that you joined. This is a free and open group. Anybody and everyone is welcome to attend these webinars. They're totally free. This is how we spread our message. And yeah, we welcome all new folks. So it's a pretty cool group. We've been doing this for 3 years, if you believe it or not. We started these webinars with the Vertical Flight Society as the H2E VTOL Council, and they gained so much momentum that we ended up spinning off into our own nonprofit called High Sky Society. So some names have been here since the very beginning in 2020, and lots of new folks coming. And it seems to be taking a while for people to join. I don't know why. There's a little bit of a lag. So we usually give it till about 5 minutes before we actually start. So feel free to say hi in the chat, shout out your city, tell us where you're calling in from. Doug is in Atlanta, Georgia. Hello, Doug. Good to see you. Nazi, I hope I'm saying that. Cooley, Seattle, Washington. I'm so sorry if I butchered your name. That's a new name for me. New names and faces. Hopefully I get to see you all during the Q&A session. So the way this is structured is I'll give some announcements and then I'll introduce Sergio Cecutta, and then we'll have Q&A at the end where you'll be able to turn on your camera and mic and ask a question to Sergio. If you're not comfortable doing that, you can ask it in the chat, but that means you're leaving it up to me to read the question, and I often butcher the question. So I encourage you to turn on your camera and mic. It's a great way to get to know other members in the group and, just get people to know your face, your company, what you do, all that sort of thing. So it's a great way to promote and all that good stuff. So we'll give it one more minute and then we'll get started. Phil is in Anaheim, California. I will be there in 2 weeks, by the way. A much needed vacation. And who else is here? Shout out your city. Yeah, go
Danielle,
ahead.
When you come to Anaheim, let me know. I live 30 minutes south.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, it's going to be a Southern California vacation in many different cities. So I'm really going to try not to work. I'm really going to try to commit to family because otherwise I'll bail on all the family stuff. It's really hard for me to not work. I guess that's a good problem to have. So I have to actually force myself to stop working and spend time with family. So that I'm not bringing a laptop or anything, which is going to be very difficult for me, but we're going to make it happen. All right, cool. So it's 5 after. We'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to High Sky Monthly. This is our free and open webinar for hydrogen aviation. We're so excited to have Sergio Cecutta here today talking about a topic that's very interesting to all of us, especially with the release of the U.S. National Clean Hydrogen Strategy and Roadmap. I hope I said that right. That's a mouthful. That came out on June 6th. A lot of us have been speculating about what the best market for hydrogen in aviation is going to be. And so Sergio will be talking us today about regional air mobility. If you're not familiar with that term, it basically means, I usually just say it means like mid-range flights, and I'm sure Sergio will enlighten us more on what that means. Before I bring Sergio on, I have several announcements. I think this is the most announcements that we've ever had in a High Sky Monthly. So first, this weekend, we did our first ChatGPT and PDFs High AI workshop #1. We're calling it High AI, Hydrogen AI. And so most of us have played around with ChatGPT, but I had taken it to another level and started using the plugins. Let me show you what I did at last month's High Sky Monthly. So I loaded in the National Department of Energy's National Clean Hydrogen Strategy and Roadmap into ChatGPT and asked it several questions. And this is what we did in the workshop on Saturday. And somebody in the workshop asked, what does the wait, they said, that's not the question I wanted to show you. They asked, why have PPAs not taken off with hydrogen in reference to the PDF? And so ChatGPT was able to go pull from the PDF this answer, and it's a very great answer. It even tells you what page it pulled it from. So it's a great resource. If you missed that course, we're considering offering it again. We like to keep it a very small group so that everybody, in fact, we just do 10 people. That way everybody's able to turn on their camera and mic, interact. It's a hands-on workshop. Every person that attended was able to replicate what I did and then some. I've been getting loads of amazing messages of how you all have been using the workshop, and feel free to put in the chat if you attended the workshop what you gained from it. So yeah, we're thinking about offering this course again. If you're interested in taking this course, it's $100 for a 2-hour workshop. Put a 1 in the chat if this seems like an interesting skill that you would like to learn. And if we get 10 ones, then we'll do the course again. We don't want to share the video that we recorded. The video recording is available only to attendees. Again, we're very vulnerable in that course. We're all sharing our screens and talking openly. They even got me rapping something about this. So we had a lot of fun and learned a ton. So again, if you want to take part in this course again, or in the future, we are thinking about doing it this coming Saturday. $100, 2 hours, guaranteed learning. Put a 1 in the chat if that sounds interesting to you. And so let's see, I did that. Okay, so then our next High AI workshop is Midjourney with High Sky. Some of you probably know what Midjourney is, and some of you have maybe never heard of it. Let me just show you what I've done in Midjourney. This is my AI art. So if you see our website, we often have really cool, we call this our cat eVTOL because it really looks like a cat. Oops, I hit the wrong button. Shoot. Let me go back to it. One thing I hate when that thing pops up. There we go. Our cat eVTOL. So if you see our website, we're always putting out cool graphics and all sorts of things. I make all of this with Midjourney. So our next course will be on Midjourney, and I thought it would just be fun to show you what Midjourney can do and how fast it can do it. So I'm going to make, this is in real time. I'm going to say let's say a hydrogen powered eVTOL. Let's see what we get. It usually takes about 10 seconds. And so this course will be July 29th, also $100. You'll walk away knowing how to do this and then some to use it. I'll show you how to improve your prompts and all that sort of thing. It shows we're at 0%. I say, a picture speaks 1,000 words, a video speaks 1,000,000, and doing it live for somebody is infinite. So I just like to, this was Rishab's idea at our last, and I mean, with very little prompting, it is making this for me. You can even load other people's graphics and tell it to revise them. You can tell it to do different styles, but one try without thinking about it at all, it gave me these 4 images, and this one is not too bad. There's a lot of good ones. So this one, I don't know what's happening over here. So, sometimes it does wonky things, but this one, I think it might flip over or fly in circles, but I think this first one and this fourth one are pretty good. So let's just kind of peek
You're sharing
into,
screen or not?
go ahead. What did you say?
Are you sharing any of the screens? Because we're not seeing any screens.
Yeah, I have been sharing this entire time. You all do see my screen, right?
I can see your screen.
Okay. So I don't
Yes.
know what's happening there, but
Yeah, I can see your screen.
okay, thanks guys. So yeah, that's just a kind of a peek into what we're doing at these workshops. Some people are like, what does AI have to do with hydrogen aviation? I've long said that aviation has a marketing problem, and we've seen so many people leave aviation to go into the tech field. So I feel very strongly that if we don't embrace these technologies, we'll become even more dinosaurs than we already are. So I encourage you to take these workshops. They're fun, guaranteed or money back, that you'll walk away from the workshop knowing how to use these tools. So if you're interested in the Mid-Journey workshop on July 29th, we do them on Saturdays because some people have restrictions at their jobs where they can't access these tools. So we do them on Saturdays so you can do them on your own computer. You won't run into any restrictions there. So if you're interested in Mid-Journey workshop on July 29th, put a 1 in the chat. Hopefully we can get 10 people to sign up for that. We want to keep them small. Like I said, if you get stuck, we're able to help you. And we have all ages. If you're older, don't be intimidated. It doesn't matter where your technology level is at. If you can join a Zoom call, you'll be able to do this technology. We had, somebody was a little bit worried. They were the oldest person there. They did fine. They walked away knowing how to do it. So it's for all ages. We don't want to see kind of what happened to some of our parents or grandparents with the internet boom and the smartphone boom, where they sort of got left behind and don't know how to interact with the world. So our goal is to get as many people in aviation and in hydrogen using these tech tools. I had somebody ask me the other day, Danielle, why are you sharing your secrets? Well, it doesn't do me any good to be the only one doing this, because then I'm going to be light years ahead of everybody else. I want you all to be able to keep up. And I mean, imagine if we're all doing this, then wow, how fast the industry is going to go. And for those of you that are just joining, I was just going to give you a peek at my Mid-Journey art. And if you want to learn how to do art like this in Mid-Journey, we're having a workshop July 29th, $100, 2-hour workshop, success guaranteed. You'll walk away learning how to create art like this. All right, cool. So next announcement is Flying High. It is rapidly approaching October 10th and 11th. I'm so happy to announce that we just confirmed Zero Avia. We'll have 2 folks from Zero Avia there. And let me just show you I did not want it to do that. Go to a new tab. Here's the website for Flying High. Here's current sponsors that we have so far and partners. Hotel information is all on here, but Rishav will also be putting these links in the chat. We are beyond excited. So some of you might be wondering, I get this question a lot. Why North Dakota? Well, North Dakota is the Silicon Valley of drones, and not just little drones. They have a Predator drone, all sorts of unique testing, huge military and Air Force presence, huge defense presence. They're also working on a hydrogen hub. The university is very active in hydrogen. There's all sorts of exciting things. And it's a small enough state that you can get things happening really quickly. In fact, as soon as we announced that we were doing this in North Dakota, we were getting, emails and Zoom webinars from the economic development folks and some of the government officials. So we're really excited. Me being from Texas, is such a big state that there's a little more bureaucracy. It takes longer to get things done. So I think you're really going to enjoy North Dakota. We're co-locating this event with the UAS Summit and Expo, which this is their 17th year hosting that. So this isn't, it kind of gives us a little bit of security with this being our first time hosting flying high. We're expecting 300 plus attendees. I'm going to give you all and you all only a sneak peek at the agenda. So we're telling you that the conference is the 10th and 11th, but for attendees on, I don't know why this is all cut off, but on the 9th, October 9th, we're doing the hydrogen aviation course. There we go. We're doing the hydrogen aviation course with teachers Matt Moran, who's a NASA retiree that worked on the liquid hydrogen systems at NASA for decades. Him and myself will be teaching the hydrogen aviation course. It's completely free for attendees. So then we'll have a little networking session for people that attended the course. It's a 4-hour course. You do not want to miss that. If you are new to aviation or new to hydrogen, this is the course for you. Or if you just want to get a better understanding. So then on the 10th, these are some of the speakers. Most of these people have been confirmed. If you see your name on here and you haven't been confirmed, reach out to me. That means I've been trying to get a hold of you. I see a couple of the names in here today, but most of these have been confirmed. So that gives you an idea of what to expect. We still have a couple of slots open. If you're interested in speaking or sponsoring, then definitely reach out. And then on the last day is a private invite only meeting. If you're invited, then you've heard about it. If you're interested in learning more, reach out to me. I need to quit opening this in the same tab. Rishab, if you want to share the link, if you probably already have, here's the hotel. Book that ASAP. It's coming up. What are we, less than 3 months away? So here's the hotel. It's connected to the Alaris Center, which is where the event is at. So if you book here, you can just walk over to the event. It's a beautiful event center. Yeah, and they even have this cool, I thought it was interesting that way up there in North Dakota, there's this sort of tropical vibe. So I thought that was funny. And you can get your tickets here. I want to make a quick announcement about the tickets. If you notice, it's BBI conferences. As I mentioned, we're co-located with the UAS Summit and Expo, which is hosted by a company called BBI. So you do have to go through their website to register. And so I've had a lot of people ask me, why do I have to log in again to buy my ticket? It's because that's not your High Sky login. So you do need to go in there, and it takes 2 seconds. Just put your email and create a password, and then you can buy your ticket. So that's why it looks different, but they are our partner. You're going to this company. That's our partner, the UAS Summit and Expo. That's BBI. So that's why it takes you there. And so I think that's all my announcements on that piece. We do have a couple of sponsorships available still, and we can add speakers until the end of this month. After the end of this month, the agenda sticks. So do not delay. It's going to be epic. And the sponsorship packages are available on this link. That looks like, and I'm going to send you all this afterwards. I know I'm bombarding you with announcements this morning. Here are the sponsorship packages. Make sure to click see more to see what's included. These are tax deductible as well. So if you get a sponsorship, you can write it off on your taxes. We have one branding package that we're selling. We're still selling that. We have not sold it yet. You get everything that you get in these other sponsorships, plus bags, shirts, notebooks. So it's the most, let's see, what did I say? I want to read this right. This sponsorship gets the maximum visibility at the event. We're expecting 300 plus aviation, hydrogen, legislative, and more industries represented, plus investors and media. And we're holding press conferences. Companies are going to be announcing big announcements. Sorry, I read that all wrong. We will hold press conferences announcing big news from a couple of major aviation leaders. So you definitely want to make that. Again, we have one branding package available. It is still up for grabs, although it might be gone today, so don't wait. Next month, we'll have Howard Koss of Lilium, and you can register here, the same place you registered for this one. Really excited about that. So that'll be the August High Sky Monthly. And last but not least, we just launched our members area in High Sky. I'm so excited about this because we had over 100 people sign up. So you'll go to our website, hit members. This is 100% free, by the way. You do not have to pay to join. It is private. It is invite only. You can request to join and we have to approve you. So it's a small private group. I mean, we're up to 179 people, but they're very, very tailored, curated audience. So if you're interested in networking and chatting, we've spent so much time really spending time with you all to find out what it was that you wanted. A lot of you don't know, you can click this chat button down here at the bottom and chat with each other, direct message. So I thought that was really cool. All hydrogen aviation enthusiasts, experts, totally free. So go in there, request to join, or check your notifications because I might have already sent you an invite. Yeah, we had 175 members join in 1 week. So the demand was definitely there. Okay, finally, on with today's presentation. So Sergio Cecutta is a partner and co-founder at SMG Consulting, an aerospace, defense, and Autotech consulting firm where he leads the advanced air mobility practice and he oversees strategy, project management, market analysis, and business development for a diverse client portfolio of worldwide companies. As a senior executive at multiple Fortune 200 companies, he has been involved with the development and introduction of products like Airbus A380, the SmartView Synthetic Vision System, and the Gulfstream G500-600. He has also led the strategic due diligence of several M&A deals. He received an MBA from the W.P. Carey School of Business, and he holds a Ph.D. in Aerospace Engineering from the University of Rome and the Technion Israel Institute of Technology. Without further ado, please welcome Sergio Cecutta. Sergio, it is all yours. I'll stop my share and mute myself, and you've got the stage.
Thank you. Well, welcome, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here. I'm sorry that I'm in a hotel room, unfortunately, travel. And it is a pleasure to meet you all. Every time anyone goes through the bio, it's always interesting to me. I'm like, it's like too much. So today, let me just start by sharing my screen. So today, what I wanted to talk to you about is regional air mobility as a launch platform, a good launch platform for hydrogen aviation. Just to give you a little bit of a background, you might have heard of us because of the Advanced Air Mobility Index that we publish. And as you know, there is some hydrogen focused on this as well. So without further ado, I would like just for some housekeeping, you can keep the question for the end. You can interrupt me and ask questions. There is no problem. I want to make this conversation as much as me introducing some material. Listening to the sound of my voice for over an hour can be grating, so it would be good to get some questions. So let's get started. So regional air mobility is a piece of this big pie that we call advanced air mobility. And if you remember, there used to be an old comic movie where this person organized a party that was called None of the Above, and basically just say, do not vote for anyone. So who should you vote? None of the above. And advanced air mobility, it's a little bit like that. What is advanced air mobility? It's none of the above. It's none of the markets in aviation that we know today. And it is a market that according to projection, it will be very big in when most of us will be retired. But at the same time, it is going to grow, and even by the next decade should be, at the beginning of the next decade, should be comparable in size to the helicopter market. Now, when it comes to this projection, anyone that has done forecasting, you know better than me that the longer the projection goes out, the more it is looking at just shaking your 8-ball. And so just take these numbers with a grain of salt, but it is a big market. And it is also a big market all over the world. And so which one are basically the 3 big areas in the world? We all know it: US, China, and Europe. And what you see also as well, if you take a peek at the numbers, you will see that actually China is predicted to start faster. Why? Because the regulation allow for some operations that we do not allow in the West, like, for example, carrying passengers in autonomous vehicles and or overflying populated areas with cargo drones, as will happen at the end of the year. So now, when it comes to advanced air mobility, right? And I know I took it a little bit with a wide berth, but I just, if you look at advanced air mobility, it's really many, many different use cases. Air taxi is what we hear all the time. Regional is what we're going to talk about. But there's also cargo, there is tourism, there is EMS, firefighting, personal, military. So there is a lot of these different use cases. But if we just look at the main use cases, I think we can all agree that the main use cases are probably going to be air taxi, regional, cargo, and the military. Now, if we look specifically at these commercial, at these 4 use cases, if you just look at the next few years and when they enter service, you will see that cargo, it's probably going to enter in service in China and then subsequently in the US for missions that are not certified at the end of this year, beginning of next year. If you want to believe the promises of the air taxi folks, air taxis will be entering the market by the middle of next year. In specific, the folks at Volocopter are spending a significant amount of time in order to make sure that the aircraft can fly in Paris. We know from Joby that they will deliver some of their vehicles to the Air Force, and they will be based in Edwards, 2 of them next year. And if you look at regional, it's something that will come a little bit later. However, every time we talk about these use cases, what we forget is that there's 2 things about a use case, right? It's a little bit like when you look at an adult. Sure, when you were born counts, but it also counts how you grow and how quickly you grow. And so when it comes to these businesses, if you look at how much time it takes to go mainstream, and we're looking at commercial businesses, because the military, it's a very special very special case. If you look at these, you will see that cargo and regional actually won't need a lot of time to go mainstream. Air taxi will need more time. So yes, they all start at the same time, but at the same time, they do not all grow at the same speed. And why? What's special about cargo and regional? So what's special about cargo and regional is a few different pieces, but the main one is the demand. So you know that any product is the make or break of any product is very much dependent on the users. And so in this case, there is the demand that we need to look at. And if we look at the demand for regional and cargo, we see what we call pull demand, as in the customer is pulling for products, meaning the demand exists, but the products do not. On the cargo side of the house, you can imagine those packages from Amazon, we really don't want to wait. And when it comes to regional, we will go into detail about how regional as a pool of demand that is out there, but the current economics have not made it possible. The other part is push demand, as in you build it and they will come. And so this is the part where it's the air taxi, where the product exists, but the demand does not. Now, you will say, well, there's no product. Well, the product is coming. However, one thing that you will always hear is it's important to understand what is the customer adoption or customer acceptance. And the reason is because no one of us has gone to our mayors and asked to fly to the airport. However, there is many little vacation spots that we would like to go and we would like not to drive to, as well as maybe we want to live a little bit farther away from one of the major airports and not have to drive 4 hours in order to get a flight abroad. So now let's talk about RAM. Okay, so RAM, regional air mobility. I can tell you that I was a skeptic of regional air mobility when we started looking at this market, and I asked one of my colleagues to explain it to me, and I thought it made a lot of sense once I understood. So regional air mobility, I know a lot of people like to say, well, how many miles is regional air mobility? It's anything that you don't need an A320 for. And so in this case, it's connection between secondary markets or hub feeder into major markets. Like, for example, if I want to go from Austin to San Antonio, I mean, sure, I can drive for 1 hour, but what if I want to fly? Or what if you want to go to the beach in Texas, in California, and you live farther away? And so this is the idea. And if you look at some of the numbers that I think are interesting, in 1999, the smallest passenger airplane that landed at a major airport was a 19-seater. If you remember the Beechcraft 1900. Today, the smaller aircraft that you find at airports, regional airports, is actually a 70-seater. And the reason is that the increased cost of operating operating aircraft has made the smallest aircraft not viable as far as transportation. And so what happened? 76% of small market have seen the frequency decline in the last 2 years. And some large cities have even lost completely airplane service. For example, I usually say that if I know the name of the city, it's probably big. For example, the city of Ogden in Utah right now has no aircraft service anymore. So what are the positives for regional air mobility? It's full demand. We don't have to talk about it. There is no customer adoption issue, right? I mean, if you tell anyone that if they want to fly from LA to Santa Barbara, we would all say yes, but good luck trying to find commercial flights. If you can fly private, then this is a moot point. There's plenty of aircraft to operate from. We'll go and we'll take a look after in the next slides how many of these airports are many. And look, just give it a look and see that it is not just a US opportunity. It's actually an opportunity all over the world. And the last part that is interesting is eVTOL is, as in vertical takeoff and landing, is actually a plus in this kind of market. And why do we put this emphasis on eVTOL? eVTOL is actually the toughest way to take off and land. And so if you can actually use a runway and make the wing work, then it is awesome. Some of the negative. So if you hear, like, for example, Tine, it's the CTO of Pipistrel, he will say that, you know, in the future, airlines will have a more diversified fleet because they will have more aircraft at their disposal. Why? Because there is aircraft that have specific missions. However, as you know, airlines do not like to have many aircraft. If you look at Southwest, they really operate one aircraft type and 4 different aircraft, and 3 right now. And you would know that the airlines do not like to diversify. The beauty of being in a hotel. The other piece is the constrained flexibility. Many of the aircraft that are being proposed for regional air mobility are electric. And you know that batteries, while a great invention, and I am a driver of an electric car, so I'm okay with that. However, they really do not make for airplanes that have very long range. And as you know, airlines really appreciate flexibility. And what do I mean with flexibility? If you look at the ERJ 170, that is a 70-seater regional jet, it has a maximum range of 2,100 nautical miles. And if you think about it, you haven't seen many of them going coast to coast. However, for an airline, it's important to have the flexibility that if they want to open a thin route, a thin long route and test it, they have an airplane that is available right there, or if they need to replace, scale down. And so they really don't like the fact that, you know, airplanes will have very limited range, and so they can use it. So when we talk about this regional air mobility, let's look at the United States. So 98 airports in the United States put on board 95% of the commercial traffic in the whole country. And if you look at the dots, you're probably familiar with all of them. However, really in the US, we have 457 Part 129 airports. And basically Part 139 airport is an airport that can host scheduled commercial service. It's just that it doesn't because there is not enough demand. And so, for example, in this case, if you look at the state of Utah, you will see that the airport of Ogden is in there. If you remember, they lost service. However, if you really want to take a big, broad look, you will see that the entire country is dotted with airports to the tune that we have over 4,000 airports. So there is an enormous number of airports that are available out there for regional air mobility. Again, if you say, sure, I mean, I have a little airport next to me, it's not going to make good, it's not going to be good for commercial service. However, you can imagine that just by looking at Part 139, we're basically make it 5 times bigger, quintuple, the amount of airports available, and also the proximity of an airport to anyone that lives in the United States. Now, we talk about United States, and as a person that lives in the United States, sometimes we have our United States goggles on, and we think the whole world looks like us. And so, but does really the whole world looks like us or not? So let's look at a place that has made green very important. One of the largest producer of oil in the world, and yet one of the country that has pushed for electrification and clean tech more than anyone else. In this country, over 90% of the cars sold are electric. It's actually one of the largest market for Tesla, and it is also a country that happens to be very thin and narrow and very extended. And so if you look, there is a lot of little cities where public transportation or ground transportation is actually not easy, because if you remember, Norway is the country of fjord, and it's actually a word from Norwegian, and it's basically this deep canyon in the water that cuts across inland. And so every time you want to go between 2 cities, you need to go around a lot. Therefore, the country has 24 public service obligation routes. And what is a public service obligation route? It's basically a route that an airline has to fly, as in they don't have a choice, but they get money from the government, and they fly between 36 airports. And 21 of these airports, by the way, you see them, just 36, and 21 of these airports have actually runways shorter than 800 meters and or less than 2,400 feet for us on the different system. And 75% of this flight is actually under 300 kilometers. So, I mean, really 300 kilometers, it's 140 miles. So, sorry, yeah, it's a little more, maybe 170. Actually, it's 186, sorry. So it's really not a big distance. So now, if we look at regional air mobility, so you guys are familiar, hopefully, with this Advanced Air Mobility Reality Index. And basically it is an index that we publish on a bi-monthly basis with Aviation Week. And the whole idea is to try to understand which one are the companies, how does a snapshot of the finish line looks like today. And so basically, which one are the companies that are more likely to produce at scale a certified aircraft. However, one of the things that many of the folks that look at it have asked, they said, it's advanced air mobility is great. However, it's a little bit of an apple and oranges when it comes to these. It's a fruit salad because why? Because there is different use cases. So what if you just look at this table from the point of view of the use cases? And so we couldn't say no. And so in the latest edition, you will see that now there is a new piece, and this new piece is the grouping by use case. It goes without saying, and you know better than me, than air taxis are where the majority of the investment is going towards, and also where the majority of the technological progress is happening. Regional is second, and then we have cargo and others. Again, these are the aircraft we track. If you look, there is been lately an explosion of new regional aircraft that have been announced. Many of them we follow, but we do not track them for the index. Now, what does it mean to be 16 versus 6? It also means that the folks that are doing regional air mobility have raised about 1.7 billion, and the folks that are doing urban air mobility have raised 3 times as much. Now, the other part of the truth is that in between the folks that are doing air taxi, there is a lot of company that we consider corporate backed. Why? Because they're part of a bigger company. And so their budget, it's not clear and visible. Examples, Volkswagen, another example would be the folks at Superno as being part of Hyundai. And last but not least, because it's the latest example, is Wisk. And just as a preview into the next index in August, Wisk is actually going to go back to corporate backed, and it will lose the number of their funding because now they're R&D for Boeing, and so it really doesn't matter to distinguish them. So not a lot of people are doing regional air mobility. More people are interested, and testimony of all the latest announcement being in regional air mobility of new aircraft and not in urban air mobility, and they're getting more money. But what is another thing about regional air mobility that is very interesting? So if you look, we always wonder, what if the same airplane was any VTOL, any CTOL? What would be the difference? And the great folks at Beta have given us a very easy comparison by taking their eVTOL and removing all of the vertical rotor components and shortening the forward boom and making it into an eCTOL. And so if you look at the eVTOL range, it's been publicized as 250 miles. The eCTOL range is 386. And that is not bad because the size of the battery hasn't changed. The size of the airplane hasn't changed. The payload hasn't changed. The weight is minimal, the reduction in weight because of the components that have been lost. And so really the majority of this range increase to the whopping amount of 54% is actually all gained by the fact that we are using a runway and a wing. So why are we talking about this? So we're talking about this because we want to understand if you start putting comparison between batteries and hydrogen, right? Both of them are what I call ESG solution. And ESG is basically the part of the governance of a company that is for looking after the sustainability, the environment. And if you look at the ESG solutions, meaning non-hybrid, yes, they can use SAF. But again, if we just look at this comparison, you will see that hydrogen is actually awesome because it has 3 times the energy density of almost 3 times the energy density of jet fuel. But our batteries are struggling. And if you're looking at the numbers and saying, I never heard about 0.5 for a battery, just remember these are kilowatt hours, not watt hours. So that's why this number is significantly smaller. So what you're seeing is, for example, an advanced battery, call it solid state, liquid, call it whatever you want. Let's talk about 500 watt hour per kilogram. Current battery at pack level at 250, we're jumping up and down. Just as an FYI, Joby said that their pack is 235. And so as you can see, as far as the capability of using or containing energy, hydrogen is definitely a very interesting proposition and much better than the batteries. And why are we talking at this? Why are we talking about this? Why are we saying that hydrogen is good for regional air mobility? So if we go back and we look at all of these pieces, we talk about the spool demand, we talk about no customer adoption issues, we talk about the fact that there is plenty of airport to operate from, et cetera, et cetera. So let's start looking first at the second part, the negatives of the regional air mobility that we're proposing. So the fleet diversification, really, there is nothing we can do as far as that is concerned. However, if you want to sell small markets, small airplanes are what you need in your fleet. However, the other part is the constraint flexibility has always been an issue because if you look at battery electric aircraft, as we mentioned, the range is small, and so it reduces the flexibility for an airline to operate. However, if we consider hydrogen gets around this limitation, and actually hydrogen offers a range that is comparable to the jet-fueled alternatives. What is the other part that is good? One of the negatives of hydrogen is the fact that you can either call it as low volumetric efficiency or you can call it volumetrically inefficient because it takes 4 times the volume of jet fuel. And therefore, when you look at any of these hydrogen solution, you find that a lot of the airplane needs to be considered and dedicated to the storage of the fuel, being gaseous or liquid. And so this becomes an issue the bigger the airplane is. In fact, you have not heard anyone talk about a replacement of a 777 with hydrogen. And actually, I think the best kept secret in the industry is that if we really want hydrogen to take routes all over the supply chain, all over the range of aircraft that we have out there, we actually need to abandon tube and wing and go to more unconventional configuration, like, for example, blending wing bodies. And I think you hydrogen folks might have looked at the announcement from Nautilus that is actually considering hydrogen for propulsion of the aircraft. And actually, it's one thing that was funny talking to the CEO. He said, volume is what we have plenty of, and we don't know what to do. And so that would be a perfect application for hydrogen. Now, in case of these aircraft, the beauty of regional is that it's a smaller issue because really the tanks are significantly smaller because you're really not looking for that kind of range. So look at that. Now, one of the negatives becomes a positive when it comes to hydrogen. Now, plenty of airport to operate from. So we do understand that really hydrogen is not a technical problem, it's more of a supply chain problem, at least what we think, not putting my words in anyone else's mouth. And what do I mean with that? Really, we are, technology-wise, I think there is many companies out there that are proving that hydrogen is a viable transportation source of energy for aircraft. However, the problem is, what are we going to do with this hydrogen? As in, we do not have places where you can put hydrogen on your plane. And the supply chain for hydrogen is actually not very driven by aerospace. I give you an idea. I live in Orange County. California is where, everyone, it's 25% of all new cars are electric. And there is a whopping 3 hydrogen refueling station in the whole LA metro area, 25 million people. One of them happens to be not far away from my house, but it's just one station with 2 pumps. And that's it. So now for aircraft, the important part is we need to build this infrastructure. And this infrastructure means making sure that hydrogen is available at the airport. However, without even considering the issues of generation, electricity, where you store it, volatility, the large airports is something that they can do to be able to accommodate this large infrastructure for hydrogen. However, the biggest issue is that now, if you really want to do regional air mobility and you want hydrogen, you need to make sure the hydrogen refueling is available, not at just those 98 big airports that we talked about, but is really available throughout those 4,457 airports in the US that we talked about. Now, one of the solutions that I've heard some folks float is tankering. If you're not familiar with tankering, is when you basically put more fuel in your tank so that you can go through multiple destinations without having to refuel. I have a beef with tankering because tankering means that you're actually transporting fuel, not passengers. But that is one way to get around any of the limitation that can be in hydrogen when it comes to regional air mobility. Now, the thing that is very positive, if you look at projects in hydrogen, you will see that the majority of the projects are eCTOL, meaning airplane with wings, that we say it's good. And the other part is you will also see that the majority of the airplane that are being worked on are for regional air mobility. And last but not least, contrary to what has been done a lot with electrification, a lot of the work being done on hydrogen is for basically upgrades to existing aircraft that are already out there. And so another good way to bring this innovation to the market, even if, again, I am a big believer that clean platforms, clean sheet design platforms are always going to be the best. I hope it wasn't too long, but it was sweet and short. One thing, if you want to reach me, you have all my data there. We are on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and as of late, we're even on Instagram, because it doesn't matter that my age starts with a 4. We should all be on Instagram. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergio. That was fantastic. And it also doesn't matter if your age starts with a 4, you can be on TikTok. So far, the only people I found on TikTok is Angelo from Vertical Flight Society, Zero Avia, and Universal Hydrogen, and Ehong. We're also on TikTok, though we haven't used it much because not many of us are on there. But that was such a fantastic presentation and a really good run through on regional air mobility. I have a question on that map that you showed with all of the airports. Is there a list that could, what I would really love is if I could click on one of those dots and it would tell me the name of the airport.
I can probably send you the list. I think it's inside some of the paper that NASA has published. This is all data from NASA presentations. So I will take an action to make sure that I can at least let you know where that map resides. Okay, awesome. And that might be something that we could build an interactive map. Oh, yeah. That would be really cool. Okay, I think the first question that I saw after mine was Michael Kramer. Michael, do you want to unmute and ask your question? Feel free to turn your camera on as well and introduce yourself.
Howdy, can you hear me?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Yeah, hey, Sergio, good talk. So a couple of questions. First, I want to talk about ranges.
Yes.
are the ranges that they're publishing, including IFR reserves, alternate airport, all that stuff, or are they the batteries hit empty, smoke is coming from the electrical system as we hit the ground and everybody kisses the ground?
So I don't think that the ranges are, you know, tailwind, no more energy in the batteries. But at the same time, I do not think that they take into, at least a lot of the ranges you've seen published, they do not take into account reserves, not they take into account what should be the range at the SOC of the battery before you replace it. Because you know if you own an electric car, and when I owned my first electric car, spoiler, I'm Italian, as you might have heard from my accent, so I drive like an Italian, and therefore I discharge the battery very quickly. However, for my first electric car, I also always charge a supercharger, so I charged very quickly. So basically I did exactly what you don't want to do to a battery. And by doing that, I actually destroyed 6% of my batteries in 20 months, as in I lost it. And so really, when it comes to these, the long answer or the short answer is whatever you see, take with a pinch of salt or a grain of salt or a lot of grain of salts, because the range I'm expecting to be less. I will give you an example. When Joby talked about the range, they always talked about 150 miles. When you looked at the slide that they published when they rolled out their production conforming, or as I call it, not conforming airplane yet, you see that now they're talking about 100 plus miles. And I think this is where the more all of these items you've spoken about are starting to be put in and taken into consideration.
Hey, can I do a quick follow-on, Danielle, or no?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Hey, the other question is, looking at the urban air mobility market specifically, has anybody really worked out the economics, the seat mile, kilometer, whatever metric, based on a realistic depreciation, amortization of the development, the cost of the craft? Or are they just looking at, you know, we're going to be unmanned, we hope, and we're going to get hydrogen for $1 a kilogram?
So
Sorry, I'm that guy. Danielle will tell you.
No, this is good questions. Absolutely. So I believe in my heart of hearts that they know the real numbers, but we don't get to know them. And I don't mean that, you know, the OEMs are trying to hide or something. It's just that, you know, they want to make sure that they understand all the pieces that go into it. Like, for example, I was talking to an operator and he said, we really do not know how much these landing fees are going to be. We really do not know how much we're going to pay these pilots, especially at the beginning, that they're going to be very, very expensive, et cetera, et cetera. If you look at the very beginning, they talked about 3.3, so call it something with the 3, as in $3 per mile passenger mile. And now, if you look at, for example, what Archer is talking, they're talking about 3 to 8, depending on where they're operating. If you talk to some of the operators, they'll tell you that they're modeling 8 to 10, an helicopter is 12. At the very beginning, it's not going to be cheap. It's going to take time. And I can tell you that the way to make this affordable to everyone is the usual 2 strategies that everyone can do when they introduce an expensive product, that is bundling or subsidizing. The airlines can do bundling. When one of your admirers buys you a business class seat to Europe, for $10,000, adding another $500 to fly to the airport, not a big deal. But if you ask me to fly to the airport for $500 to LAX, I'll be like, no, no, sorry, don't have that kind of money. I'm going to go for dinner at the most expensive restaurant. And the other one is subsidizing. And subsidizing is very well known to anyone that has taken an Uber. I can tell you out of matter of fact, I moved to LA 5 years ago, and when I started taking Uber, it was $80 with the tip, and now it is easy $120, $130 with tip, and the prices of gas hasn't changed that much, and the distance hasn't changed either. Yes, the cost of living have gone up, but not that much, and the reason is there's no more subsidies. You're now paying what it costs to do that. Maybe one last item that I thought it would be interesting, and I kind of remembered that, but late. Another example on range, if you look, for example, at Lilium, and I know we're talking eVTOL, not eCTOL. With eCTOL, it's simple. Really, eCTOL, and it's one of the reasons why Beta went first with the eCTOL. I mean, it's a Part 23 aircraft, okay? I mean, it's nothing new. It's just it's got on electric motors and batteries. Okay, fine. I mean, it's new, but not completely new. But for example, if you look at Lilium, at the very beginning, they were talking about, 250 miles, then it went down to 175 miles, and now it's 109 miles, but considering full payload and I think some reserves. So really, if you ever want to ask the question, you want to ask anyone that gives you range is, what is the range at the SOC when you retire the battery at full payload and with your reserves? Because that is basically the worst case you're going to have.
Thank you, Sergio. Next, we have Daryl
Thanks, sir.
Swanson. Thanks, Michael. Next, we have Daryl Swanson with a question. Would you like to turn your camera on and unmute and ask your question, Daryl?
Hey, Sergio.
Mr. Daryl.
How are you, sir?
Excellent. By the way, let me say that when I mentioned that I wasn't convinced about original air mobility, and someone explained it to me and convinced him, the man that's talking is the miracle maker.
Miracle maker. I don't know. Electric aviation evangelist, maybe, but then again, I have been called worse, so I can take that. Didn't really have much of a question, just more some statements about regional air mobility, and I think all the conversations that Sergio and I have had and the work that we've been doing really suggests that regional air mobility will be a bigger market than urban air mobility. And the key takeaway there from our perspective is that there are just more small airports closer to passengers' origins and destinations than large airports with great surface access. So this map that you have up on the screen is the perfect reason why. If you started plotting populations around where those airports are, you can begin to get a picture of where some of these routes will start to evolve. And I've put some links in the chat for some papers that we've done on advanced air mobility and that. But Sergio, what do you think the evolution is going to be like? Where are the major bottlenecks in terms of adopting regional air mobility? Is it the technology? Is it going to be the energy, or is it going to be consumer attitudes?
I think probably it's convincing the airlines to introduce aircraft types that they have never operated in the last 30 years by the time they come out. And I think the other part is also making sure that the ticket prices are reasonable. And if you listen to Ian Villa and the guys at Whisper, you will see that they were mentioning the fact that if the prices of regional air mobility is not comparable to a car trip, then people are going to keep driving unless it is something necessary that they need to do quickly. And so I think it's the economics and making sure that there is adoptions are the two big ones. I do not foresee an explosion of airlines buying aircraft. I mean, it's when you talk to a startup, it's already uncertain. When you have a startup operator operating an aircraft from a startup, you just add an uncertainty on top of uncertainty. So that's why I like, for example, to hear a United operating a Heart Aerospace, because United is United. So
yeah, I agree with you. I think it's the utility of the journey. It has to. Yes. It has to add up for the client. You can't, if it's more expensive to fly on something that you can reasonably drive, then the market isn't going to be there for it. So this is why we think it's going to be the longer journeys where the time savings is significant over other modes of transport, that you'll get people switching. And of course, there's the elasticities with that price that we'll have to play with, but the industry will learn. And of course, they do very well at yield management, so we expect that to come into it. But I think the interesting thing is that we've got lots of eVTOL manufacturers, but we haven't got a huge number of fixed-wing electric aircraft manufacturers. And I'm just kind of waiting for some of them to come out of the woodwork and out of stealth mode, because that's where I think the real interesting market is going to be.
Well, I mean, if you look, I think most of the newest airplane that have been unveiled, let's call in the last 2 years, they were actually winged, eCTOLs.
Yeah.
Either full electric or hydrogen or hybrid.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is another point that I wanted to make, and I don't think I made the point clear. Hybrid is a solution. However, it's not a full ESG solution unless you consider SAF. And even with SAF, again, the hydrogen is only and battery only, it's a different story.
Yeah. All right. Cheers. Thanks for that.
Absolutely. Good to see you, man.
You too.
That was cool. Glad we got to see the magic behind making you a believer. Next, I see Patrick Raftery. Would you like to unmute and turn your camera on, Patrick, and ask Sergio your question?
Hi, Sergio. Greetings from Cork. 2 questions. One, what's your view on retrofitting existing older aircraft types with electric motors or H2 engines versus new designs? And the second, what were your main takeaways from the Paris Air Show in terms of new technology, electric aircraft, hydrogen, etc.? And a disclaimer, I did see your eVTOL CEO panel. So retrofitting existing aircraft and main takeaways from Paris.
Absolutely. Well, so first of all, good to talk to you. Nice Porsche behind you. Little joke.
Thank you.
So let's look at 2 points. So I am usually not a big believer in retrofits. I have done 10 years of retrofits at Honeywell, and it is very complicated to ask someone to put money on a depreciating platform. However, you know that if you look at the depreciation curve of an airplane, at the end of life, the airplane is worth the engine plus a penny, to be nice, because everything else is basically worthless. In fact, if you don't know, most of the airplanes, when they reach end of life, the fuselage gets scrapped for recycled aluminum. Who knows what carbon fiber, considering the recycling carbon fiber is a different story. But in this case, I think that there could be a market for extending the lives of some of these platforms into the future. It's really all a matter of a play on what is the remaining life versus how much it costs to get a new airplane versus how much it costs to retrofit. And again, my pet peeves with retrofit is that they will never be as good as a custom design solution. And especially when it comes to hydrogen, you need to find room for the tanks. And regional, maybe that's the good spot, because the tanks don't need to be that big. But anytime you climb over 70, 90 seats, now the tanks become big enough that, I mean, either you need to take out seats, and that's a no, or you need to redesign the plane, and then you go to a brand new airplane. From Paris, I think someone put it the right way. Paris was crazy. I think it was a little bit like, when you're cooped up at home after you're sick, and then you just don't want to see the house anymore. So it was a little bit the industry being cooped up at home for COVID, and then it was like, yay, party. I don't think I've seen that many people in one place. I didn't see any major announcement when it comes to technology. What I saw is the fact that now this whole advanced air mobility begins to be more of a reality that people can touch and feel, and less of a science experiment. And I think also having companies like Archer and Volocopter spending the money to bring those full-scale aircraft to the show was very important, because let's not forget the last 2 days of the Paris Air Show are open to the public. And by the way, if you think there were a lot of people during the press days, you have no idea. I mean, they were asking people to move to make the 777 get on the runway. It was 100,000 people, imagine, in every day. But it was good because it gave these folks the touch and feel. If you look at statistics, they say that 75% of people in the United States have no idea what AAM is. And I'm not talking AAM, I'm just saying air taxi, electric aircraft, whatever you want to put on it. They have no idea what it is. And 75% of the United States is a good chunk of people. And again, it's a nation with good education, et cetera, and yet no one knows. And I think it's important because politicians don't move until their constituents are interested. And so it is in our best interest to make sure that, you know, it's not just, I mean, all of us, we're fine. I mean, it's a little bit like, you know, talking between initiated, fine. We all know the secret handshake. We need to make sure that we teach the world. So.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks, Sergio. Bye.
Absolutely.
Good point. I think even in this group, some of us don't really know what advanced air mobility is, and that so many things fall under that. I was really happy to see that you covered that at the beginning. Rohit Grover, you're up. You can go ahead and turn on your mic and camera and ask your question.
Hi. Yeah, thanks a lot, Daniel. Hi, Sergio. It was a really nice talk. This was my first talk, actually. Recently, I had a chance to interact with Daniel. So I had a quick question. So I wanted to understand when you had mentioned about, you know, the regional air market. So is that so you mentioned that, you know, the operational frequencies came down for the existing aircraft, and how is making it eVTOL or in the new way that it's helping, you know, solve that particular problem? Any thoughts on that?
So very good question. So the reason that the frequency have fallen is, I mean, you know that, I mean, all of us, I mean, we're in company, we run company, we're not non-for-profit. And as one of my old mentors used to say, a non-for-profit is just a company with a different financial statement. But the idea is that the economics were not there. And so the idea is that by using hydrogen, by using electricity, by using new platforms, and this is the part with the retrofit, that's a little bit of the question mark, we can reduce the costs and therefore make it economic again to serve this route with these little airplanes. And also the second part is more and more communities are looking at sustainability. I mean, if you turn the clock 10 years ago and people say it's sustainability, you would go, you know, it's you're just one of those Greenpeace people. Now it's just normal. I mean, it's sustainability. It's normal now. It's almost the needle is going the other way, where you need to justify why not, or what you're doing, why you're not doing it. And so I think it's also another part of the sustainability picture of an airline is to offer some of this route on green aviation. Even if you go play with the Boeing tool, Cascade, that is super cool, go play with it. And if you start putting air taxi, for example, you basically take away 0.2% of emission, total emission of aerospace. Not aerospace is 2.5, it's 0.2% of 2.5, so it's nothing. And so it is a good story for the airlines to have some of these airplane. And it's a little bit like, if you remember the gas guzzler taxes, where you know, they were, if you are above, in the US at least, if you're above a certain average consumption for your fleet of vehicle you sell, you get charged a penalty. And so they would produce smaller cars or electric cars with no emissions in order to, you know, bring down the total. And by the way, that was the way that Tesla made the majority of the money in the first years, or until 3-4 years ago, is selling their carbon credit to other companies. And so I think something similar is something that is appealing for this market. So it's not just a good story for the communities, but it is also, I think, a good story from the part of sustainability. But once again, as Daryl mentioned, as you mentioned, if this cannot be economically feasible or viable, then it's just a moot point. I mean, we all like technology for technology's sake. The only people that can pay for it, and not even that much anymore, is the military. So in aviation, anything that makes is way on an airplane needs to pay its way from the very beginning. Just as an FYI, when we were doing retrofit, we went to airlines, and airlines said, I need you to start making back my money on day one. If you don't, I won't even talk to you. And that's why at that time, winglets were like in the early 2000s, the mid 2000s, winglets were awesome because as soon as you put them on, fuel gets saved. But as the more that connection between fuel savings and technology is difficult to prove, the more difficult it is to do a retrofit.
And I have another quick thing to add on to this. So has there been any trials on hydrogen engines, like hydrogen gas turbine engines? Because I see more about the fuel cells, because they actually are damn heavy compared to the gas turbines. So like, I think you were mentioning something about hybrid. Is that the hybrid, like burning hydrogen is something in an engine? Is that part of the solution?
Well, I mean, the truth is, it's a little bit, the hydrogen airplane is just an electric airplane that carries the power generation station on board, basically. So it's kind of a cheating. I mean, there is really no hydrogen airplane. They're all electric, unless you're burning hydrogen. That's a different story. But if you're using fuel cell and converting to electricity, it's an electric airplane. It's just that, your little, power plant, instead of being on the ground and you take a little bit, you take the whole thing with you. And so that's one of the big advantages. Again, I mean, weight, that's the reason why on terrestrial application, hydrogen is a lot easier. There is a lot of market for hydrogen locomotives because it's a lot cleaner than diesel. However, the hydrogen locomotive, I mean, they got all the space they need. I mean, they got the space for the tank. The weight doesn't matter because the locomotive weighs 20 to 80 tons. So it's not a problem with aviation, and that is why it's taking more time. You can go buy an hydrogen car. Okay, the Toyota Mirai looks really cool. And by the way, Mirai, if you guys don't.
I think you missed the question. I was mentioning about hydrogen aircraft engine. So the same, the jet engine burning hydrogen rather than burning aviation fuel.
They're working on it because of the high energy density. Hydrogen burns at really high temperatures, and that means the material you need in the engines
actually, we are a startup from Chennai in India, where we have actually come up with a solution that actually controls the temperature phenomenally. So that's what I just wanted to get an idea. There's a fit for this particular solution for this market. We have a combustion technology for gas turbine, which actually reduces the temperature and burns phenomenally well with hydrogen as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I know that in the roadmap of all of the propulsion guys is to do hydrogen. However, the first issue that the first thing they got to get to is 100% SAF. And that is much, much more important to them.
Okay. Thanks. I think I took a lot of time.
No, absolutely. Sorry that I misunderstood. Thank you.
Yeah, I love it. Just a comment real quick. Hello, Bud Scriba and Mike Hirschberg and Angelo Collins, our friends from Vertical Flight Society. I just want to remind folks that Oshkosh is right around the corner, and the Vertical Flight Society is holding the VFS Electric Aircraft Symposium next weekend, and there will be a session on hydrogen at that. So if you're planning on going to Oshkosh, make sure you attend that. Satya is one of the speakers at that. I believe he's on this call, and so I just want to encourage you all to attend that before I forgot to mention that. Let's see.
And let me add, Danielle, that if you guys don't want to hear my voice anymore, don't leave 2 hours earlier the last day of the Electric Aircraft Symposium, because I'm on a panel.
Fantastic. Interesting. Ovi has a question. Ovi, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Sure. Actually, someone else followed up right after mine. You mentioned that you didn't really believe in retrofit because it's just better to start and make something so it's custom fitting. Does that mean that you don't believe in the zero avia model or universal hydrogen, where they're basically retrofitting existing airlines with their powertrains?
I think there is a market. I think there is a market. My experience with retrofits has not been positive in my career. Usually retrofitting powertrains and power plants is very complex on an airplane. I think that there is a market, but I would say I see it more as a transition to entire new aircraft. They use hydrogen. I mean, the moment that Airbus comes up with a completely hydrogen turboprop, I don't think the economics of an ATR with hydrogen retrofit is going to be as appealing, even if it's a lot cheaper. I would agree with that one.
Yeah, and if I could weigh in on that as someone that also came out of an aircraft startup, a hydrogen powered aircraft startup, we were looking at, now I can't speak for zero avia and universal hydrogen, but from our experience, why we were retrofitting was that was a path for us to certify the powertrain, but we 100% were planning on also certifying a new airframe, but it was an easier path to certify one part at a time. That's the short answer. So I would agree they're probably looking at a new airframe down the line, but certifying the powertrain is probably the bottleneck that they need to get through first. That's my guess. Let's see. Okay, so questions. Peter Connors, you're up. Go ahead and unmute and turn your camera on. I have the same question as well.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Great presentation, Sergio. Really, I just enjoy hearing more and more about this. And so you mentioned SAF, and you're kind of negative about it. Could you just go over the pros and cons of SAF versus hydrogen?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm negative on SAF. It's just it takes time to get there. I mean, I think the first big advance on SAF is decoupling from livestock. So that, at the beginning, if you remember 20 years ago, they were like, oh yeah, we need to farm all of the Amazon just to produce SAF for the rest of the world. Yeah, that's unsustainable. It's just that the problem, again, it's many times the problem is the supply chain. And so in this case, again, it's a supply chain. We not make enough SAF. And so it's not available out there. And then, if you go, one of my good friends runs the Pratt & Whitney Canada division, and he will tell you that all of their engine can run a blend of 50% SAF today, all of them, not a problem. However, we need to get to 100%. And I think that is a bigger question. If you know that the majority of the cost when it comes to engines is actually in their life costs, not the acquisition costs, even if they're not cheap. And so there is a lot of unknowns when it comes to maintainability, when it comes to life, et cetera, et cetera. The difference with hydrogen, the whole SAF thing doesn't need a new supply chain, so that's the easy part. I mean, the same tanker that brings your fuel to the gas station or the airport is the same tanker that will bring SAF. And by the way, there is also now they call it alternative fuels in the car industry, and it's because people that like to shift their cars and hear their cars making noises, they want to keep driving them. And so especially Porsche has actually bought an entire company that makes e-fuels. So that basically the idea is that, sure, we'll go electric, but we'll still make a few of these noisy, rumbling, spine-tingling gas cars. And so the same thing is going to be for SAF. Again, for hydrogen, I don't think it's a technology problem. I mean, the beauty of this whole AAM, it has attracted a lot of smart minds and a lot of young minds to the industry that, as Danielle was saying, would have gone to Google and all this other good stuff. And they discovered that actually hardware is cooler than software because you can actually beat it up when it doesn't work. And so again, the issue with hydrogen is the supply chain. And supply chain, usually anytime a big supply chain is in the middle, it always needs some greasing of the wheels from the government, because it's just not easy. I mean, it's a little bit like if you have to look at, for example, at just car chargers for electric cars. I mean, it is an issue because there's not enough of them. But when's the last time you worried about filling up your car? I mean, there's a gas station every corner. And so again, it's a supply chain issue.
And then just to follow up on one of your earlier slides, when you compared jet fuel with hydrogen, you said that hydrogen had 3 times more energy output. Would the SAF be comparable to jet fuel?
Yeah, the SAF, it should be like a drop-in replacement for jet fuel.
Okay.
So you don't get more energy, but the volume, if we can find, I mean, the ideal thing would be if hydrogen could use the same volume as like jet fuel, we wouldn't be talking about any other thing.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Absolutely.
You just reminded me, Sergio, some people want their cars to make noise. Over the weekend, I rewatched iRobot. I haven't seen it in like 20 years, and I just wanted to see what they got right and what they got wrong. And there's Will Smith drives an electric car, but it makes a noise that it has an engine. And I didn't notice that back then, but I definitely did. I was like, wait, that car would be quiet. Anyway, it was cool to go back and watch. Ken Swartz, you're up. And I think somebody had their hand raised. I believe it was Tom Freund. If you're still in here, you can go after Ken. Ken, good to see you. Another regional air mobility evangelist. If you're still in here, Ken, feel free to turn your camera on and unmute.
Yeah.
And ask. Yes.
I'm not going to turn the camera on. I'm in a crowded workplace. Let me just go back to my questions here. I'm just trying to pull them up as on my phone here in the chat. So I'm scrolling up to. Okay, so my first question for you, Sergio, is do you see the primary market for regional air mobility as point-to-point services or as an extension of mainline hub and spoke networks?
It's interesting that you asked me this question. So I was talking with one of the folks that run the OSDP, the Office of Science and Technology for the President. And then she was saying, so you got to explain this to me. And I said, well, you can serve, from smaller airport to big airport. And he goes, but I got a problem there. They're already busy. I can put more airplanes. So yeah, I mean, it would be an interesting thing to say that you can fly from a small city to a big hub. But then now makes the problem of, are you going to dedicate a slot to a 19-seater or to another 300-seater? And the 300-seater pays a lot more landing fees than the 19-seater. And by the way, the slot is the same because you occupy the runway. It doesn't matter how big you are. However, I think a lot of the market is serving secondary markets. I mean, if you need to go to LAX, you need to go to LAX. It's fine. I mean, I just went to LAX yesterday, and I mean, it was amazing. 20 minutes to just go from the entrance of the airport to my gate. But there is a lot of goodness in this city to city. I mean, if you imagine, it's a little bit what Boeing did with the 787 by bringing 2 far-flung cities with very little traffic that now can be served because the 787's got 220 seats, not 300-400 seats. And now in this case can we bring something like this, but instead of on 6,000 nautical miles, on maybe 600 miles or 300 miles, but they're 2 little cities. And so I think that is another thing that is interesting. So I would say secondary to secondary, I would bet is a lot easier to do than secondary to hub, because the hubs already, it's a few years ago, we were wondering, well, I mean, the ATC system, we're at capacity. If you're smart, the sky is big. The airports are not.
Very good. That's an interesting take on that. And the second question I have is, regional airlines, certainly in the US, have been phasing out their turboprops as they rationalize their fleets and manage scarce pilot resources. I guess the latest example would be Horizon, which was one of the larger turboprop operators, but now they've phased out the Q400s in favor of E175s. Does RAM require the airline industry to re-engage with propeller technology, or once it's gone, is it gone? In other words, the landscape is all jets. And that's maybe more of a cultural question, but I'd like to get your sense of that.
No, I think you make a good point. It's a very interesting question, right? I mean, if you go back, the history books say that we lost the turboprops because here people like to fly in jets. Now that I'm a little older and more cynical, I would say, is that the history written by the winner? Because jets are actually bigger and you can put more people and you can charge more than the turboprop that costs less money to operate. Really, I mean, I think the beauty of IAM is it's taking people away from an airplane looks like that. I mean, I jokingly say we've been making sausages and wings for like, what now, 100 years, not 100 years, but, you know, close to. And the beauty is advanced air mobility is actually educating the world that airplane just can look many different ways. And the fact that you have propellers, it's not a bad deal. I mean, and so I think some of that stigma goes away. And I would add to that also the fact that if these open fans actually become a reality, we will have some fancy schmancy turbo machinery laying out there, making them look like a propeller aircraft. It's just that they go in Mach 0.8, 0.85, 0.9. I think it's a little bit like our idea of car. You know, it's our mind's eye is expanding. So I would agree with you. I think that the generation that has come to fly and do a lot of the flying in the past 30 years is probably less hung up on propellers than we used to be 30 years ago.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Tom, I apologize. You will get dibs on the next question, but we're going to have to end it here. Sergio was kind enough to give us 90 minutes of his time. Thank you so much, Sergio. That was a fantastic, one of our best High Sky Monthlies that we've had yet. I will use this last second to tell you, if you still have a question, go here, sign up for the members, and then you all can chat on there. Also, Sergio, oh, sorry, I'm not sharing.
Oh, let me stop my share.
There, I got it. So you can go to our website, highsky.org, click on the members, and it's totally free to join. You all can private direct message each other on there. Also, Sergio did provide his contact info. If you have further questions or you didn't get it, feel free to email me. Thank you all so much for coming today. Thank you so much, Sergio. Definitely one for the record. Yeah, have a great week, everybody. Thanks again.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much, Danielle. Bye-bye.